Okay, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am joined today by very special guest, Allan from TAO Galaxy. Allan was just telling me behind the scenes that he doesn't do a whole lot of these interviews, at least not yet, because I feel like TAO Galaxy's probably going to be getting some traction, and you'll be pretty popular here pretty soon, Allan. I feel, but yeah, really excited to be chatting today about what you're building with TAO Galaxy and hear what you've got going on behind the scenes. So yeah, maybe just by way of introduction, you could give us a brief background on yourself first and foremost, and then what was the genesis of the idea for TAO Galaxy? Because it seems like it's becoming one of the go-to tools for kind of discovery and subnets, and we can talk about all the problems there as well. But yeah, give us a brief introduction and tell us about the idea behind TAO Galaxy.
Great. So thanks a lot for having me on this interview. My name is Allan. I'm 28 years old. I've been involved in crypto for about 4 to 5 years, and my background is in financial engineering. So I worked as what we call a quantitative analyst in large institutional funds and banks. And yeah, I discovered crypto trading about 5 years ago. And I say crypto trading because that's how I was introduced to crypto initially, purely from a speculation kind of perspective. I was always kind of skeptical about the technology because of the background I come from. And so it took me a bit of a while, I would say, to really, go deep into the technology and understand the real potential of Bitcoin, of Ethereum, and of other few currencies. And so I discovered TAO Bittensor exactly 2 years ago. I think it was October 2023. And I fell in love with the project almost instantly for, I think, all the same reasons that we have, right? The first crypto project to ever mine intelligence, allowing anyone in the world basically to just plug themselves on the network. And, depending on the skills you have, whether as myself, right, a quantitative analyst, if you're good at forecasting, crypto prices, if you're good at forecasting the weather, inference, training, etc., so many ways, right, to earn money from anywhere in the world. That's really what triggered me initially. And so I joined the network as a miner on a few subnets. And then, yeah, quite naturally, I was spending more and more time trying to understand the different subnets. And I think the biggest switch happened with DTAO in February 2025. Yeah, almost a year ago, right? And that's when we realized that, okay, now we can invest, we can buy the tokens of those emerging tech startups, right? And it's amazing. It's a huge opportunity, but it came with a huge struggle, which is, okay, how do I understand actually what each of those startups do? It's extremely hard to gather information. And if you're not technical, or even if you're technical but you're not technical on that specific topic that this subnet is doing, then you're very easily lost, right? And so that's how TAO Galaxy was born, I would say. At first, it wasn't really not the point was not to do a business or anything like that. It was just to build a tool that would help me understand the subnets from as a founder, right? Understand what are they doing. And then naturally, I started to post about it on Twitter, and I got some, traction. The community has been extremely helpful, extremely welcoming towards this idea. And then, yeah, naturally it went and became somehow a project. And yeah, that's
Awesome.
it.
Yeah, maybe we can tap into a little bit of the process of why TAO Galaxy and the need for something like this. And from my perspective, and you might have found this as well, and this might have been the whole point of TAO Galaxy, when you first come across Bittensor, on the surface, it's very easy to dismiss. Like, I faded it for probably the first 3 to 6 months after I heard about it, because you go to the Bittensor website and it doesn't give you a very good picture or a very good idea of what's actually happening on the network, what's actually happening under the hood. And it's not until you find tools like, TAO Stats, TAO App, and obviously now TAO Galaxy, that you really start to formulate a better understanding of how the network is operating and what's actually happening. So was that ultimately what you kind of found? And is that the birthplace of TAO Galaxy? And feel free to paint that picture?
Yeah, I like the word you're using, picture. Actually, that was exactly the point, right? The first point was to have a visual, something that would allow you to map the ecosystem in the most straightforward, intuitive, and beautiful way, right? And so that's why initially I spent a lot of time designing this like map, the galaxy view on TAO, and hence the word TAO Galaxy, right? So the first point I would say, and I spent a lot of time on that, is how can we visually make the ecosystem much more easy to understand and to grasp. And so yeah, the idea with the Galaxy was to map the subnets in the different categories where they belong. And yeah, so that was the very first point of TAO Galaxy, was exactly that, to make it like the front door of Bittensor, right? And of course, TAO Stats is a platform that I've been using since day one and that I still use to this day, right? But I would say it's a little more technical, and for people that maybe need an introduction to the ecosystem that are a little less technical, then maybe TAO Galaxy is a little easier for them.
Yeah, so maybe I can share my screen just to kind of show that visual that you're referencing, because the Galaxy view, or the visualization of everything on the screen here that I'm sharing, is kind of the idea that you're referencing here, that in
Yeah.
order to help people better understand, you wanted a more visual way to communicate the information, the subnets, and obviously then diving a layer deeper into all of the data related to those subnets under the hood. So yeah, I mean, I think you've mentioned before that your goal for TAO Galaxy is to make Bittensor more investable. And so I guess on the surface, we're looking at a visualization tool to help us better understand subnets. Could you explain what else is going on here with TAO Galaxy that you're doing to help make subnets more investable, and what's the real goal?
Yeah. So if we take a step back, right? So for example, TAO Stats or TAO.app, in my view, they're more focused maybe on-chain data, which is great, right? TAO Galaxy, the goal is to go maybe yeah, a step further, I would say, or maybe approach it in a different way to connect the dots, right? So of course, on-chain data is important, but also social data is also very important. So whatever's happening on Discord, on X, is extremely important, right? So we scraped on-chain data, we scraped social data. Also, a huge step that we're going to do, we're not doing yet, but GitHub data. So everything related to the pure development of subnets, right? And this is something I think TAO Flute is doing from TAO Templar, which is great. But also being able to translate the incentives, the code, literally the code of the subnets, into something that anyone can understand and track, right, throughout time. So that's the next step of TAO Galaxy, to also leverage this source of data. And ultimately, you can really see TAO Galaxy as the hub connecting the dots, the sources, everything happening in the Bittensor ecosystem, happening in the subnet, in the incentive, on-chain data, social data, or even if you take even in the future, maybe like whatever happening on the adoption of the subnets in the real world, right? So yeah, that's the vision for TAO Galaxy.
Okay. Those data pipeline pieces that you just mentioned, you mentioned scraping social metrics,
Yeah.
and eventually GitHub and also some other sources. Is that the kind of the value proposition that you're trying to hone in on, that you're going to be kind of the one-stop shop for all of that data feeding into, I guess, a proprietary dashboard that gives investors an edge? Is that am I kind of summarizing it correctly?
I would describe it like this. Yeah, I would describe it like this. I would say, yes, the first step exactly is to connect the data, aggregate it. And I would take even a step further, which is to interpret this data, right? Because if you just show raw data about, yeah, this sum that maybe made 10 commits, whatever, last month, it doesn't tell you much about what's going on, right? So the point is also to help people understand, right? So first having an overall view of what's happening, and then a step further, which is to basically produce some kind of intelligence. And this can take different forms. But yeah, that's the goal.
Okay, so those different forms, I mean, I guess it's touching on these insights and reports that are able to be read and understood by investors.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit of an insight into how those insights and reports are created? Because I'm guessing these different data pipelines from both on-chain and social sentiment are are
Yeah.
feeding your database, and then you're obviously creating these insights and reports based on all the unique data that you're creating. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
could you give us an idea of what are these insights and reports, and then
Mhm.
the process of how you're creating them?
Yeah. So for example, if you focus on the insights, currently they're only focusing on social data and
Hmm.
exclusively currently on Discord. In the next few weeks, we'll upgrade from also including X and also GitHub. But the logic is the same, right? So initially, first you scrape the data, right? So for each subnet, you have a history of whatever happened in the subnet, right? And there's a methodology that basically, okay, because the ultimate goal, right, is that this is scalable, right?
Hmm.
So ultimately we're using AI to kind of condense all the information and to output those insights. But if you just like give raw like historical chats to an AI and to tell the AI to just output insights, it will not do a great job,
Hmm.
because first the context can be huge, right? So you need to find a way to kind of make the data more compact, and also you need to differentiate between who is talking in the Discord, right?
Hmm.
Because if the subnet owner is saying something and then just a random someone who never chatted on the Discord is saying something, shouldn't really have the same weight,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So this is the methodology that we're working on, and it's also being refined, right? Because there has been a few um, some people have reported that sometimes the insights are not perfectly accurate, which is true.
Hmm.
They're not 100% accurate.
Hmm.
And of course, like AI, there's an LLM which is like trying to make the information clear. And of course, we all know that when you use ChatGPT, the information is never perfect, right? So you always have to use your own judgment. But still, like the methodology of giving more weight to contributors depending on their anciency, depending on how much they contributed to the subnets, should make the AI insights smarter.
Hmm. Hmm. Is there a human screening element to that process right now? And it, if yes or if no, in future, is the goal to get it to being
Yeah.
completely automated without any kind of human intervention?
Yeah, so maybe surprisingly, currently there's no human
Hmm.
decision on this. The real reason, the straightforward reason, is that I've been working on this alone. You know, I'm the only person working on this, and so far it's been I think they've been doing a great job. Because if you take a step back, maybe from like 1 month ago, before this feature existed, there was no way actually to keep track of everything happening, like the updates that are
Hmm.
happening on the ecosystem, being able to categorize them by impact, by sentiment, by
Hmm.
type, right? So the first step was really to build like this tool to make it as easy for as possible for people to be updated about the subnets.
Hmm.
The next step will be to make it as accurate as possible. Of course, it's already quite accurate, right? But as I said, it's not perfect, and this has been reported. And the next step will be to, I mean, maybe we're going to have the opportunity to talk about it, but yeah, I'm planning to onboard a few people to help me build this,
Hmm.
and there will be some human touch on the whole process, maybe more for the reports than the insight. I think the
Hmm.
insight will continue being purely automated.
Okay. So there are subnets on Bittensor. Data Universe subnet 13, I think, comes to
Yes,
mind as like a data scraping subnet.
yes.
Are you using any subnets under the hood or any kind of existing subnet infrastructure to help power what TAO Galaxy is doing? And if not, maybe is there an opportunity to do that in future?
Yes, so it's funny you mentioned Subnet 13, because I actually have been in touch with the guys in Macrocosmos from the very, very, very start of TAO Galaxy, before it was
Hmm.
even live or anything. And exactly like we first talked about how I could use the data scraping tool that they do specifically on X and could incorporate on TAO Galaxy. It's not implemented yet. As I said, right now it's only focused on Discord, but the next step is to introduce X. So I think I will very much put myself into how we can implement the solution, hopefully with the help of subnet 13.
Hmm.
Uh, as for other subnets, so yeah, I mean, currently we're using LLMs, right, to summarize the content. So I could definitely see myself and the tech stack using shoots, right, to leverage the LLMs. It's not implemented yet, because again, like I'm a solo founder, right?
Hmm.
So I just had to go with this most straightforward and faster way to implement the product. But hopefully, yes, I'm planning to incorporate more subnets in the tech stack. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a process. It's natural as well. Like, I've been mining on Bitcast, for example, and they started using the GPT LLM for analyzing all of the transcripts from the miners for video outputs, and then they transitioned to using Shoots in the past couple months. So I think there's a natural way
Exactly.
to incorporate it as you grow, for sure.
But ideally, if I would be so happy, like TAO Galaxy using 5 or 6 different subnets to power its tech would be like that's my dream, honestly.
Yeah, a truly open source alternative.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, as Tau grows, I think the whole idea here is we're likely to see more retail investors as well as institutional investors, and we're already seeing that happening. But I think it's only going to accelerate as we move into next year and the year after. Do you see Tau Galaxy being geared more towards retail investors or institutional, or you think it's relevant for anyone who just wants to get deeper insights into subnet specific opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So initially, and obviously, the product as it is right now is, I would say, more for retail. Although already, like some funds are using it, right? But the plan for the next 3 months, let's say, is to really focus on the institutional product. And yes, I've been in touch with a few funds from the Bittensor ecosystem. I mean, there's not a lot right now. Like there's, I would say, less than 10, right? So I've been in touch with 2 of them. And yes, there's really a need from these funds to be able to consume data, right?
Mhm.
Like at the end of the day, investing when you're a professional, when you work in a fund, it's only about data. So if you
Mhm.
have good data, if you have data that is hard to access, that is hard to fetch, then you usually have an edge, right? Especially in an ecosystem which is so as early as Tao. And so yes, bottom line, yes, we will focus on the institutional product, but my vision from the start was to make Bittensor more accessible to everyone, right? So I will also continue developing the retail platform. And so my answer would be that let's say that for now I've been focused 90% on the retail and 10% on institutional. In the next
Mhm.
3 months, it'll become maybe more 50-50, I would say.
Okay. Um, are there specific features that you think are going to be incorporated? Like right now, I like the ability to kind of compare different subnets against each other, and then the insights and the reports are great. But do you see this becoming like a data hub where I can, I can be getting real time alerts if there's a whale or a large amount of buy orders for a specific subnet or a large amount of sell orders? Is there? There probably is, but what
Yeah.
might be the next 2 or 3 biggest types of features that you're planning to add that you could maybe give us a clue of?
I would say that the next biggest feature, honestly, that I'm extremely excited about is all the data related to the incentive mechanism. So
Hmm.
basically, allowing you to know very, very easily and clearly what is the subnet rewarding, and is it aligned with what the subnet is saying. To give you a
Hmm.
very simple example, it made a lot of noise on Twitter when I was tweeting about it. I think a couple weeks ago, the subnet 23 used to be nuance, right? And I've
Hmm.
noticed when I started to mine on the subnet that what the subnet was claiming to incentivize was not what the subnet was actually incentivizing. The
Hmm.
subnet was claiming to incentivize nuance on social media, but the code was really not that. The code was basically allowing people to farm Tao just by quote retweeting each other. So bottom line is that there's so many subnets like this currently that are under the hood because
Hmm.
basically no one is able to know what is happening in the code, right? Like
Hmm.
if you're not a very technical person, you're not going to go into the code in GitHub and understand what they're doing. And even if you are, you don't have time to do that for 128 subnets, right? So the goal really is to translate whatever's happening on GitHub and make it as easy as understand as possible so that you're
Hmm.
able to flag, okay, this subnet is actually doing a great job, they're actually doing what they're saying, this subnet is not really doing what they're saying.
Hmm.
So the incentive data is going to be like very important, and I think that's what the founder of Bittensor said. I saw that the video I think a year ago or something. Basically, he was saying that like if a subnet's incentive can be gained, its value is effectively zero.
Hmm.
Right? So that's something which is extremely important for investors to know.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, there's no way for anyone to interpret or know this data. So yeah, that's going to take a lot of time for sure to do this the right way. But yes, this is going to take a lot of time, and we're going to focus a lot of energy into that. Then yeah, maybe I mean in the future, I could also see, if you're a miner on Bittensor, or if you're an aspiring miner on Bittensor, there's no real way also for you to start mining or to understand how much revenue you can expect to make on this subnet, how competitive it is, all those kind of metrics, right? So I think TAO Galaxy could also help develop tools and data to help miners, because right now we're talking about investors a lot, but I think miners are probably even more important than investors, because miners ultimately are the one producing the commodities.
Yeah.
So if we're able to onboard, let's say the next, I don't know, 1,000, 10,000, 1 million, let's be crazy, miners, like the best developers inside Bittensor, that's game changing. And we all spend our time and energy trying to make Bittensor as easy to understand for the miners as well.
Yeah. Awesome. I love those 2 points. So on the incentive mechanism piece, could you maybe just for beginners or people who are a little bit newer to TAO, because I know some of the people watching my channel are a little bit newer to TAO as well. Could you explain the importance of the incentive mechanism? Because that is the critical piece for subnets to refine. And when you do see Const talking and other subnet owners talking, and it's not a one and done either. You often see subnet owners having to constantly iterate and refine that incentive mechanism. But could you just explain briefly the importance and what that is on every subnet?
At a very, I would say, high level, the incentive mechanism of a subnet is basically the goal that this subnet is pursuing, right? And the difference, when you think about it, every company in the world, they're each like trying to pursue a certain goal, right? Maybe this company is trying to produce the best possible, I don't know, chip. Maybe this company is trying to produce the best possible forecasting agent, blah, 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 right? So this is exactly what's happening for the subnets. Each subnet has its goal, but the difference between the subnet's goals and companies' goals in the real world is that the goal of the subnet is coded, right? So it's for everyone to see. And as a miner, you're literally rewarded for this, right? So if the problem is that if a subnet's incentive mechanism is not, if the code basically, if the code is not reflective of what the subnet is trying to produce, then miners can game it, right? And maybe to give an example, I don't know, let's say a subnet is trying to incentivize predicting the price of Bitcoin, right? But maybe the code of the subnet makes it such that there's a bug, and actually miners don't really need to predict Bitcoin price. Maybe they can simply put the old prices from Bitcoin, and the subnet reads it as its new price. So basically, yes, it's very important for subnets to design their incentive mechanism. Maybe I didn't explain it so well about the example, but there's so many ways that it can be gameable, right? There's so many ways. And as you said exactly, subnet owners are constantly basically on a cat and mouse kind of game between them and the miners to refine the reward function, right? And
and I think, like you said, the example with nuance maybe, and again, I'm not pointing fingers, but because some subnets know that they can get away with that because they're also able to earn a lot of TAO from the subnet and the way that it's already tapped into the incentive or the TAO emissions flow. They're sometimes, or at least historically, they have not, the subnet owners themselves have not always been highly incentivized to refine the incentive mechanism to weed out extractive miners. And I think the TAO flow update is helping a little bit with that. But I think, we're starting to see maybe a little bit of a reckoning, but it would be cool if TAO Galaxy was able to, again, visualize or explain to investors which subnets, have the best aligned incentive mechanism and make that a bit more easy to consume, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you go deep into explaining what's best aligned, what's not best aligned, it can also be tough, right? Because essentially what you're doing is auditing the subnets as an incentive, and it's really not a straightforward thing to do, right? Because different subnets have different way of incentivizing. But I think one way is simply to basically explain what the subnet is incentivizing, and then just compare with what the subnet is claiming to incentivize, and then basically letting people basically infer whether that's aligned or not, right?
Hmm.
Because the like judging whether that's aligned is also quite tricky. Sometimes it's very obvious,
Hmm.
sometimes not so much. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think just a way to show this in a transparent way would already make the lives of so many people much easier in the ecosystem.
Yeah. The second point you made about miners as well, I like that because um, mining is a pretty asymmetric opportunity on TAO right now if you know how to, or if you have a skill set for a particular subnet.
Mm-hmm,
Um, what I found, and I'm mining on Bitcast, for example, because I can produce videos on YouTube and I already have a bit of an audience, but I've been trying to find more and more subnets that have a very low barrier to entry for mining.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
so one or two that come to mind for me are like this new Perpdex 10x. You can provide liquidity on the
mm-hmm,
subnet and you can earn tau for providing liquidity and you're effectively mining. Same thing on TauFi, which is powered by subnet 10. You can
mm-hmm,
provide concentrated liquidity into a pool
mm-hmm,
and you earn fees, but you also earn subnet emissions from that. So I think that would be extremely valuable to have some kind of way on TAO Galaxy to
mm-hmm.
show maybe which subnets are low barrier to entry for mining and like outlining what people need to do to be able to start that. So it sounds like that's part of the roadmap. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. um let's talk about monetization because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mhm,
TAO Galaxy currently operates with a subscription model, and if you want to get access to the deeper insights and the best data, you can pay, and I think you have plans starting from $10, and I'm sure that's subject to change, but
mhm,
is that the primary method that you are planning to monetize in terms of generating revenue for the business, and is there other ways that you're thinking about monetizing in future?
mhm. So I think the next way to monetize, and it's aligned with what I was saying earlier, is through enterprise plans, right?
Hmm.
So the next goal would be to produce customized dashboards for the funds, for the Bittensor funds that need this data. And so yes, this will come with specific enterprise plans. So that's the next step. I will say that will most likely drive most of the revenue. And then other ways in the future, maybe it's also it's something I haven't decided yet, or it's not really clear to me. But there's also maybe a monetization route, maybe with subnet teams, maybe with
Hmm.
subnet
Okay.
because I think that subnet teams have a lot of needs which are not being met right now. And I think it could also be interesting to explore that, but I didn't really give it that much thought for now. It's just something I think I need some time to explore. But yeah, could also be
Yeah.
interesting.
Awesome. Is there a world where Tau Galaxy is getting to a point where users are able to connect a wallet and possibly buy and trade different subnet tokens? I know that might be further down the line, and there's already platforms you can do that on, like Tau Stats or Backprop, etc. But maybe there's a way to integrate that into Tau
Mhm.
Galaxy, or is that something that you would rather leave to those other protocols?
Yeah, to be honest, I think I'm more on the letting others who know maybe better how to do it to do it. Because
Hmm.
ultimately, I think TAO Galaxy is not really a trading platform. The way I see TAO Galaxy is really like the Bloomberg of Bittensor, and you
Hmm.
don't go on Bloomberg to trade, right? You go on Bloomberg to find edge, to understand what's happening, to collect data, to
Hmm.
form your decisions, basically, and then you go on the exchanges to trade. So currently, I don't think we're going to do it. I've been approached by yeah, I've been approached by some players in the ecosystem to incorporate swapping in the platform, but for now, I don't think it's the right move. Maybe it will change, but in the short term future, at least, no.
Hmm. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and anything else you want to touch on, Alan, at the moment in terms of features or topics or anything else that you can give us about Tau Galaxy that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, no, I think we've made a pretty good job at capturing the whole thing. I would really maybe emphasize again that the goal of TAO Galaxy is to not only like aggregate data but also interpret this data. So you would be able to see quantitative data but also qualitative data, which is already what we started to do with the insights feature. And yeah, ultimately, I would say it could be seen as a mix between, if some people are familiar with PitchBook, it's basically a data platform for private markets. I think that's a very good inspiration for what TAO Galaxy plans on becoming on the institutional side. And yeah, of course, a nice vision and ambition would be to become Bloomberg for Bittensor. And yeah, maybe something else not related to TAO Galaxy, but I would really like to say to your audience that mining TAO is actually like it's potentially a life-changing thing, right? There's so many subnets. I mean, I'm sure that so many people have skills and they don't even know it yet, right? And there are new subnets every week with new incentive mechanisms. So there are always so many opportunities for the ones who take time, to go and go in the trenches and understand the code. And hopefully, TAO Galaxy, going back to TAO Galaxy, will make this a bit easier for miners, because I really think miners are completely excluded from the whole. No tool is currently addressing their needs, right? I think it would be awesome to have that.
How do you see the subnet ecosystem at this moment in time? I mean, you're someone who has been involved with TAO even
Yeah.
prior to DTAO. I was purchasing TAO prior to DTAO, but I wasn't deep in the weeds on subnets by any means. With the DTAO upgrade in February and everything that has transpired over the past 8 to 9 months, what is your take on the state of subnets and that ecosystem at the moment?
Yeah. I remember in February, like basically right after the launch of DTAO, so many people were saying, you should allocate all your TAO into subnets, because if subnets are not worth anything, then basically Bittensor is not worth anything. And I remember having a bit of the contrarian view that, like, it's still super early, right? Let's actually take a step back, guys. This is extremely early. Bittensor is early itself. Subnets are even more early. So like let's take a step back, and it's actually, because if you remember in February, like I think the sum of subnets went to 3 or something. It was a crazy like bull market for a whole month there. And so now of course things have calmed down. But of course, surprisingly now that the sum of subnets is like towards 1, of course not a lot of people are advising for subnets anymore. But my opinion is again contrarian, because I think the fundamentals of subnet have never been stronger than they are today, right? I mean, there's so many subnets that are doing a great job. From the top of my head, the one that's been grasping most of my attention is subnet 50. So synth, basically forecasting future crypto prices. I mean, you've seen what they have been doing, right? On Polymarket.
Well, you mentioned prediction markets earlier as well, and the results that synth are getting on Polymarket is phenomenal. With
Honestly,
that ROI, yeah,
that's crazy, exactly. And as myself coming from the financial industry, I really see the value of the subnet and what they're producing. So for me, it's something that I love, and I'm really curious to see what they're planning. But also, there are other subnets in other areas that I don't fully master. Of course, Shoots is the number one, the leader. Ridges, we're expecting to see the product, right? It's very exciting to see what they're about to release. I don't know, so many other things. Like there's so many applications. I honestly think the fundamentals are stronger than ever. Of course, this is not financial advice, but I started to allocate more into subnets in the recent weeks, right? Because I think that the discrepancy between the market value and the fundamental is big, and it's bigger than ever. So in my view, this is the right time. But of course, there's still time, right? There's still so much time. We're only not even 1 year into the subnets. There are going to be new amazing subnets that are going to arrive on the network. So yeah, my advice would be that, of course it's exciting, it's new, but let's also take a step back, breathe, and like hopefully the good subnets will still be here in 5 years from now. But I don't see more than, I don't know, 5-10% of subnets currently being here in 3 years. So
there's always going to be that evolution. With your quant background, and you mentioned synth subnet and the incredible results they're getting on Polymarket, is there potential for kind of signals or those kind of prediction markets to be built in some capacity to TAO Galaxy in the future? Maybe that's in the back of your head or not.
What are you asking? Sorry, can you reframe the question?
So I guess you know the way Synth is producing
Yeah.
different signals with the inputs from the miners, which they are
Mhm.
then able to use to create some kind of trading bot on Polymarket, as an example.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's even possible to use like the insights that you're curating
I
from
see what
TAO
you're saying.
Galaxy to create signals, or maybe you just see it as being more anecdotal data sets that investors can interpret themselves rather than it producing actual signals. Yeah, I guess with your quant background, it could be interesting.
I mean, of course, my goal is to be able to produce the data that is valuable, right? So if this data eventually becomes signals or highly interpretable data that can be used as a trading signal, that would be the goal, and I think that's what I'm trying to do, right?
Hmm.
Like I'm trying to build a data engine that will like literally support investment decisions.
Hmm.
So, and again, I think in Bittensor, the real like the how you say like Bittensor is special because it's kind of a closed ecosystem, right?
Hmm.
Because the data sits literally in 3 or 4 places. All that you need to know is there, right? You don't need to scrape the web. You don't need to, right? So that's what makes it actually possible to create this data engine that could eventually be used for trading bots for sure.
Hmm.
And but of course, this is going maybe 2 steps further in the future. I think the first step is really to focus on building a strong data layer that connects the dots. And then if this is built correctly, then this can power trading, this can power mining. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah. So definitely that's the goal.
Yeah, yeah. TAO Galaxy could become the biggest miner on Synth. You don't know if your signals are good enough. So
Right.
for sure. Um, Awesome. Well, I think we've got one question in the chat here. Iskar was asking, what is the best way to understand this new process to begin investing? He's saying he already owns TAO, but he wants to do more than just invest in the coin. So maybe
Mhm.
that's someone who's kind of dabbling and getting into TAO and they haven't gotten into subnets yet.
Mhm.
What would you say would be a good way to begin exploring that?
I would say just have a look at the subnets and maybe try to understand what the subnets are doing. Try to, maybe TAO Galaxy can be a good introduction to look at the map. And maybe if you're interested into some categories, maybe you're interested into forecasting, maybe into robotics, whatever, just look at the subnets and try to select a few ones. And I wouldn't say invest into them immediately, of course, but really try to understand from a business or technological perspective what they're doing. And if you believe, even outside of Bittensor, right, do you think that what they're doing could actually solve something in the real world, right? So I think, yeah, I would say like try to approach it more from a curiosity perspective rather than an
Mhm.
investing perspective.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, any final words of wisdom, Alan, that you want to leave us with as we wrap up? Anything that we can keep an eye on? Obviously, people can follow you on X, and they can check out TAO Galaxy on X and check out the website. I'll leave links for all these in the description, but taogalaxy.com is the URL. Yeah, anything else you want to share as we wrap up today?
Yeah, I would really say that if you're really curious about BitTensor and if you really think that this project has potential and you're maybe not sure whether you want to hold it in the future, long term or not, I would say that the best way for you to make to build a conviction for yourself is literally to try and mine, right? Even if you fail, even if you're not technical, it doesn't matter, right? You will understand BitTensor so much once you actually understand how TAO is emitted and how you earn it, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if you earn it or not. Doesn't matter if you. This is not the point, right? The point is really for you to go into the trenches and really try to make your hands dirty. And in my opinion, you will you will learn a lot of things and it maybe eventually make some money along the way. So that's
Yeah,
my advice.
I think absolutely. There's no better way to understand it by getting your hands dirty and getting into the mix of it. So, Alan, once again, really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation. I look forward to tracking the progress of TAO Galaxy, and would love to get you back maybe January or February. I'm sure you'll be working on a lot of good stuff behind the scenes, and you'll probably have a few updates by then. So yeah, best of luck. Keep building, and would love to get you back for an update in the new year.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.